What's up?
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going.
Cool. It's going. So we're back with another episode. This is episode 5. It's episode 5, I believe, that we've been able to record. We're recording this backwards, by the way. So for those that don't know, we recorded this previously and it didn't work out. So today we're going to be talking about something that we think is very underrated in today's day and age, especially in relationships, serious ones at least. So yeah, she's tired and hungry, and we're here. So I say, we're very dedicated to this.
Yes.
And so yeah, the topic of encouraging spiritual growth in your partner, romantic partner, of course, a boyfriend or girlfriend, a husband or wife.
Well, actually, technically, this does apply to like any relationship. We're talking about husband and wife, romantic partners.
It could definitely apply to any relationship in your life, but when it comes to the people that you spend the most time with,
your significant
for the most
other.
part, your significant other is going to be that person that you spend the most time with. And I think it's very important that as an individual walking this earth, that you at least make it one of your priorities to be able to encourage that person to have a relationship with his creator or his or her creator. And I think that's something that we've come to realize in our relationship, how important it is. Why? Because it's not easy to live this life, No. It's not easy to coexist with somebody day in, day out, and go through ups and downs, and you win together, you lose together, and
I do feel like it's very easy to coexist with you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, and what I meant by not easy.
Because it's not. It's generally not easy. Like it's not even like.
Yeah, still.
But I feel like we've never really had an issue, which is weird. But yeah.
I mean, we've had our fair share of disagreements and stuff like that, and that's just the normal stuff of relationships.
Coexisting in general.
Yeah, and it's a learning experience for everybody, right? And just because we had a pretty good experience, doesn't mean everybody else is going to have one.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's why I think it's important for somebody to have, to some extent, an idea of that this is going to be a process. This is not going to be something that you just wake up overnight and figure it out with your partner. If you're kind of think that you figured it out, and you're in for a rude awakening, in my opinion, because somebody's always changing, evolving, whether they like it or not, in your different seasons of life. And at least that's been my experience, and just be able to just kind of position yourself mentally and emotionally to be able to say, this person is going to be changing and growing, and the ups and downs are going to force us to be able to, adapt and figure it out with each other. And I think the spiritual aspect of things is something that people don't really bring to the front of their minds. It's not a conscious thing for most.
Most people. I guess you can put it that way.
Most people don't.
You could be wrong though.
At the end of the day, the number is going to be.
Yeah, we don't know the stats. We should look up the stats.
We should make our stats, I think, or I don't know if those are things are calculated, but
it could be calculated. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
it would be calculated as far as Christian couples. It wouldn't be necessarily what's going on in their couple.
Yeah, it'll be it'll be
a
survey or something.
General, yeah.
Like a survey,
which probably won't mean anything. So yeah.
Yeah, it's honestly something. It's not that tangible, honestly. So
no,
the tracking metrics of it is it's not something I'm I personally think that if anything, more people need to be aware of this. If anything, so I personally think the vast majority aren't aware. In the relationships of how important it is to be intentional with the spiritual growth of the relationship and the spiritual growth of the individual, and you being the accountability partner in life of that person is, I think, it's super important to just be mindful of that. So
speaking of spiritual growth, our last podcast, the first one that we recorded that got messed up right after we got married. That was in January, right? We recorded that?
Yeah.
We recorded literally right after we got married. It was supposed to be the first episode back, but then the enemy tried to with our audio. So we're just doing it over. But we literally just got married. It's been a few months, so we didn't talk about it. But
we made 3 months.
Yeah,
3 days ago.
3 months married, guys. Most people watching this know that.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to say because this is our first podcast back married. Actually married.
Like one that God willing is going to be posted. So definitely excited for that, and so just be able to shed some light on some important topics from our experience, from our personal journey and stuff, and what we have gone through, because that's the only thing that we could kind of refer to outside of the Word of God, right? So I think that when it comes to our relationship, 6 years is a long time, and there's people out there that have been together for significantly less time than that, and I'm sure people out there that's been together for significantly longer. But everybody's experience is different, and I'm sure when it comes to analyzing that relationship and the quality of the spiritual aspect of it, I think it's something that more people should care about. I think a lot more people, once they start caring more about that, they can kind of start just seeing things from a different lens. I think, at least for us, it's something that I've been so happy to experience with our relationship, where when certain things happen, we now find it more beneficial to finding a solution if we kind of ground ourselves in the Word of God and what it says, and kind of that's our accountability. Yeah. Right. And if we can bring that into our relationship individually and then come together and say, you know what, we shouldn't be doing this, or we shouldn't be acting this way, or shouldn't be talking this way, or whatever the case may be, so. Right. Which goes into my my first, I guess, segment of what we're going to be talking about, which is the concept of leading by example. Where I wanted to kind of get your feedback on how important it is for not only a man to lead by example in his relationship and as head of a household, but also in general, from your perspective as a woman who is very powerful and passionate and has so much to bring to the table. What's your in particular the spiritual aspect of things? What are your thoughts on you as an individual, leading by example and being able to bring your best self, at least to your max capability to the table? Just what are your thoughts on that concept of leading by example?
Well, I think it's the only thing you could lead by. I think I'm used to leading by example. I have to speak for myself in this situation, but I'm used to leading by example because I was in leadership for the past gazillion years. I, as an entrepreneur, excelled in leadership. That's where I built my skill sets off of. That's what I made the most money off of. So it's instilled in me to lead by example. I preach that and I practice it. So for me, it's different, but because that's just who I am. But I think generally, some people that don't even, I don't know, some people think that way or know that, but they don't actually act on it. They don't take action. Some people always say, hey, lead by example. It's a phrase everybody knows, but some people will not do it, or they'll do it, but not realize what they're doing is giving off of the wrong example or a bad example. So, I think it's literally just the best thing you can do in a relationship. And by example, though, leading by example, that comes from, where does that stem from is also that could be the issue, or it could be the benefit to the relationship when you're leading by example. We're leading by example off of what's our example? A good relationship under what foundation? Under Christ. That's our example, but some people could be having a whole other example. So they're leading by example. Yeah, they're leading by example of the world, of the culture, of just things that are not of God, So leading by example is important, but the example part, I think, is where you need to dive deeper,
Right. Yeah, and I can bring this Bible verse up that I have written down here. It's in Matthew 5, chapter 5, verse 16. It says, let your light shine before others that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. I'm going to say it one more time. Let your light shine before others that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. And that's something that I find very impactful, that verse right there, because it just paints the picture of you being able to be conscious of the way you show up, right, in all your relationships, but primarily like your significant other, how you're showing up and how you're able to reflect the good deeds of a human being on this earth, and be able to through those deeds glorify your Father in heaven, and just be able to like just be that person that leads with love and that leads with understanding and patience, and these are all things that equate to what love, biblically is, So I think that's something that's super important, and a lot of couples nowadays, like I've noticed, are the complete opposite. They don't really show up with that, like, with that frame of mind where they're gonna be responsible for how that interaction is, whether whether you disagree with something on something with somebody, or whether you're having a bad day, and like you're the whole theme of emotional intelligence and being able to control your emotions. It's not easy. We struggle with that to this day sometimes, right? We're humans, and we have the right to feel things, but now it's our responsibility to.
No, it's so hard to be able to. You're used to acting a certain way your whole life, or a majority of your life, or responding.
It's like a conditioning.
Way. Yeah, it's conditioning, exactly.
Yeah, so that's something that like I started like being more intentional with is how I'm showing up, and that's something that's like not easy when when you're in different seasons of your life, like a season of struggle, for example, where you're like trying to figure things out, and things are like not really happening at the time that you want them to happen, and you're with somebody who who just kind of obviously is there with you, which is a blessing. They're going through things with you and stuff, and I think that when you're able to take a step back before you react to certain things, and you just say, what, like I'm gonna respond to this in a way where I'm not gonna let my emotion kind of take over. I think that's something that's super mature, right, in somebody. So yeah, I think that's something that everybody should be considering. Right? Don't be a hypocrite. Don't say you're gonna do something, do the opposite, or don't think.
Or at least hold yourself accountable. Yeah, because it can be emotional. It's like a mixture. It's emotional intelligence, and then also situation, like experience, and like what you're doing. Like right. It's like emotional intelligence, and like, because someone could be very emotionally intelligent but slip up because they're going through a hard time or something like that. Like, we're emotional beings, like you said, we're human. So you can't always fault someone, but as long as they're holding themselves accountable, or someone else is holding them accountable, and they don't always, lead by example in the wrong way, then that's really what matters. Because it is hard, but again, it's really like, it's a skill you have to develop almost.
Right. And I think something that's going to lead into our next like topic is going to be like what kind of habits that you have as a couple, like that you're doing daily to be able to ground yourself. Like the topic of what you're listening to, or what you're playing in the background, or the kind of music that's playing, or the kind of environment that you're kind of setting in your home, or your office, or wherever you are.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's super important, and it's like people they're not really conscious of that, right? So for example, like we wake up, we're either playing some jazz, or some instrumentals, or even some worship, or worship instrumental, or worship song, or worship playlist. But
when we wake up, it's usually worship instruments.
Yeah, just something that's gonna kind of like ground us, and like we want that good energy in our home, and no matter if we had a rough night or whatever, we want to kind of set the tone for the next day, and like
that's always the tone.
Just remind ourselves.
It's always a very calm and
and I think that's like super underrated.
It's so underrated, but I don't think, like you said, a lot of people don't pay attention to that. Like, a lot of people don't even care. Number one, or they don't even realize what they listen to, or what they watch, or whatever has an effect on their like household, or whatever the case is. Because even back in the day, like years and years and years ago, when I would listen to, or when I would go to certain people's houses and stuff, and they would, like, it's funny because obviously we changed. We're so different now. Like, we used to listen to a ton of secular music, and a lot of like, not just secular, but like bad music.
You just be straight up. It's like demonic.
Yeah, like just a lot of like chaotic music. Like now, I feel like when I hear music that sounds a little chaotic to me, I can't. I'm just like, please turn it off. Like, or just like I can't hear it loud. I can't. It has to be like a good vibe. Or so like I've been in situations in the past couple years since I felt that way, and I've been in like households and stuff like that where they don't pay attention to those things, like you said, and I hear this kind of music or the stuff that they're watching, and I'm like, I'm not easy. Like, I'm so uneasy. I'm so uncomfortable. I'm not relaxed. Like, it does have a huge effect, but it's crazy because, like, maybe those people that were doing that don't even realize it.
Right. And I was listening to something the other day, and it was, I guess, like a reminder on, like, when you feel those things, like when you're in a room and there's certain things playing and you feel like your spirit is not like making you feel comfortable and you're like, oh, this is not it. Or if you're talking to somebody who you know, right? You're cool, you're friends or whatever, but like the topic of discussion or like just the energy in the conversation doesn't really like, it's just not doing what it used to do. And there's like a different feeling. Like you're just like, well, like I don't even feel right in this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I kind of want to
remove yourself.
Yeah, I kind of want to not talk to you or not be here. And that's something that could come off as like negative, but that's just what I learned from that piece of audio that I was listening to was that, you know, when Jesus enters your heart and fully transforms you from the inside out, and you start feeling these different things, it's just a matter of like you no longer are who you used to be.
No, not at all.
That means you're no longer going to feel the same way you used to feel when you're listening to certain things, when you're talking to certain people, and that's completely okay because you're now walking on a different path. Right?
Yeah, of course.
And that's something that I think
it is so weird though. Like it's okay. Obviously, we know we're transforming, but it is so weird to not feel comfortable with things that you were always comfortable with.
For sure, and it's hard.
Like I'll hear a song and I'll be like, oh, like I used to love that song, and I'm like, I can't even play it for more than like 30 seconds. I'm like, okay, no, it's not. It's not. Like I gotta turn it off.
Yeah, and you know the majority of people aren't going to understand that, honestly.
No, that's a personal, okay. Like you gotta. That's your own like transformation you have to go through.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something that like I hope more people get to experience that conviction, that transformation. You know, and people are just afraid of change.
Yeah, because it's so peaceful.
Yeah, it's peaceful. It gives you more discernment, more wisdom. You're able to like to be conscious of different things that you're doing or that you're a part of. You can avoid a lot of negative things, you know. So
just like the other day when we played that movie that we thought was going to be funny.
Yeah,
and I was like, turn it off. Like within a few minutes, I was like, I don't like this. Like turn it off. And then after I lingered on it a little bit, I was like, that made me feel so weird. I don't know why. Like there was nothing wrong. Like it's and a normal.
It was like a raw comedy.
It was so, but it was like, yeah, but it's like
a dark comedy. Yes.
For me, it felt dark. Like that's what I'm saying. Someone else would have watched it like, oh, this is so funny. Like generally, like it was a comedy movie, and I was like I was just not. I couldn't. I was like, please turn it off. And you were like, yeah, fine.
There's a grown woman cursing at the kids, and like
it was just too much. Like I was like,
you know, some people are cool with that because they're just like, you know.
No, some people would love that, especially for the comedian that was on it. Like she's normally hilarious. Like I think she's so funny, but I just couldn't. My spirit was like, turn off right now. Like you can't.
Exactly. So, I think this is an important topic right here. It's the concept of being able to speak life into your partner and like express gratitude every single day. That's something that like so many people like it just flies over their head. And they don't realize how important that is to really pick and choose your words wisely and how life and death comes through what you say, right? And we're bred in this world that we live in that actions speak louder than words. Yeah. Right. Which there's validity to that. And, you know, we've had this conversation in the past too, where, you know, we do have to watch how we speak. Oh, yeah. We do have to watch what we say, how we say it, because it does determine, it puts energy out into the world, and it can determine how somebody, especially your significant other, like responds and how you make them feel, right? Because words are so powerful. You know, life and death comes through the word, right? The word is God, and God is that's what kind of rules our life, at least, right? It doesn't rule the world, right? This world is ran by dark forces, but when it comes to what we say and how we say it, it's so important that in a relationship, communication, we're able to communicate effectively and healthy and positively, right? And speak love and speak life into each other. So I wanted to get your feedback on like what your thoughts are on that, because I know that's something that we have worked on in our relationship. Yeah, it's not easy, and especially coming from the city that we come from. It's like, you know, there's a lot of like slang out there and a lot of aggressive verbiage and communication tactics where you can come off as harsh,
straightforward, aggressive.
So I wanted to get your feedback on like your growth experience in that. And how you kind of started thinking about what you're saying, how you're saying it more often, because that's something that's like so powerful, especially you, because one of your gifts is your words and the way you project and stuff like that, and how powerful that is, right?
It's a blessing. It could be a curse.
Yeah. So I want to get your feedback on that. What you think,
Well, that's where I did one of the most biggest transformations. Obviously, you know that, but I mean, certain people know that too, like in my life, because I've always just been very aggressive and like, I'm not even gonna say masculine, because masculine, like aggressive could be part of masculine energy, but like I'm not even gonna put it on that, because it's literally just like, you're just aggressive. Like you could be aggressive and a feminine, like it's not, but anyway, I was aggressive and very harsh, very blunt with my words, and I always say that there's nothing wrong with being blunt, because like you can still be blunt, but it's just a matter of how you say it. Like I just never paid attention to those things. Like I didn't care. It wasn't how I said it. It was I'm saying it. I want to say it, and that's it. Like, and I didn't care. I didn't care how anybody felt about it. I didn't care how anybody thought I related the message, because all I thought about was the fact that I was just blunt and they had to deal with it. And also I never came from a bad place. So that's like the biggest thing with this whole communication aspect of like how you're communicating and how you're talking, and words that can be a blessing end up being a curse because of how you said it, like all of these things. So, and I think that that's where I had to completely transform, because I would get so angry all the time when I was just like telling friends or family or even partners like something bluntly, but the way I said it came off wrong, and I would be mad, because I'm like, well, I love you and I care about you. I'm just trying to help you. Like, how could you possibly think that I'm being mean or I'm being malicious? Like, I would get so angry because I'm like, what? How did you hear that? Because I didn't hear it. I just heard my love and affection come out for you, and you heard anger and craziness and maliciousness and mean. And I'm like, it just, for me, before, it didn't make sense because of my own emotions, but it really is just a communication tactic. Like, and I didn't want to change my communication, because I just felt like I would see people that would communicate differently, which is crazy. I would see people that would communicate differently, like softer and nicer, and like they would get pushed over and they would get like ran all over. And I'm like, no, that's never going to be me. Like, I'm not going to do that. But obviously, when Jesus came into my life, that completely changed, because if I want a heart of Jesus, I need to be like Jesus. And like, that was the hardest thing for me, but it does change everything. Like, I didn't want to be this angry person. I didn't want to communicate so harshly and things like that. I still don't see a problem with someone being blunt and straightforward, because I am very straightforward. I think that's just something you have to have even as a business owner. But it's like, obviously there are ways. Like, I have seen other men and women communicate very straightforward, very, but in the right way. So I just think like it's very important to, if you have that issue, or if you think you may or you may not, or if someone has brought it up to you before, that you communicate like the way you say things is not right, then that's something you have to fix. Because once you do, like, you let go of so much anger, you let go of so much like anxiety, you're more peaceful, you're more at peace, and you're more okay, and you feel better about the way you talk to people. Like, now, if I was to act like how I used to in a moment, even if I slipped up or something, it would bother me so badly. Like, obviously I would repent and things like that, but I would be so bothered that I even spoke that way. But whereas before, it didn't bother me at all. I was like, yeah, that's like who I am. I don't care.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's been amazing to see your growth, honestly. I've had a front row seat for
literally
6 years now, and that's something that like I'm so inspired by from you, because we've had conversations about it multiple times, and it's something that like I've always like myself as well. I've gone through my growth as well in that regard, but just being able to just be a witness to that growth, spiritual growth, that maturity emotionally, right? Being able to manage your emotions better and stuff like that. It's something that I've always admired, that you decided to take that step in your own life, which is going to help your relationships outside of yourself. And I think especially our relationship, because that was like one of our weakest points. Our weaknesses, not like overall, but like in general, like the concept of communication is, and a lot of people can relate, I'm sure, to that. Like the way they communicate is something that they need to work on. And we were we're conscious of that, and we acknowledged it, and we said, you know what, like, this is something we have to work on, and we're still working on it to this day, right? It's something that never ends, especially that we go through life, we just move
and
on.
Communication is a bunch of things, by the way. Like, some people get it confused. Some people think like communication is just like speaking your feelings and speaking your emotions and not like hiding things from each other. Like, people put that under communication and they forget about what we're talking about right now, which is how you talk and the way you speak and your tone and those things. Like, that's all part of communication. So it's like, people could be like, oh, we have great communication, but then they're yelling at each other, and but they think they have great communication because they don't hide things from each other and they always communicate their feelings, right? Which obviously is important, but that's how I think it was for us too. Because like, I think we've always been good at communicating that. Like, we've never had those issues. The only issue was like, obviously, like how aggressive I was and like my tone and things like that too. Right. You've always been very calm.
Yeah, I think that's what God put me in your life.
Honestly.
To kind of bring that like energy levels, because they're really effective. I mean, it helped you, in your business and stuff like that, and be able to launch a company with multiple people and stuff. And,
no, I'm not this like quiet person anymore. It's just I'm not gonna be mean in the way I try to be straightforward or like come across not compassionate or empathetic.
Yeah, it's important. Empathy and love and compassion, these things, like, this world kind of conditions people to see those things as weak.
I did.
And
I thought it was weak.
Exactly. And just because you saw compassionate people get trampled over, and look what they did to the most compassionate person in history. They literally abused him and killed him in the worst way possible.
But it also got to a point where I was so aggressive that I couldn't let it go.
Yeah.
Like, I would get angry if I was less aggressive. I would get angry at myself. Like, it was so bad. I had it like...
It was like a stronghold. I would consider that a stronghold,
sure.
like a spirit within you that, that was kind of like in control. And when you find God and you find Jesus and you start building a relationship with him, you're able to eliminate those things and for good. Because you're more, you become shielded, right? We're taught that the word of God is a shield and actually an armor. It's like full-fledged suit, right? Along with the sword itself.
Your tongue is a sharp
and you're able to like really protect yourself from all these negative influences and these negative tendencies, right? Because people that struggle with like attitude issues, and these are all like things that you can eliminate by building a relationship with God and like
it would just help you like as far as accountability to like another level. Because I also didn't want to be that way anymore. So my emotional intelligence, my personal development made me want to stop doing that. And then finding Jesus and just wanting to actually be like Jesus and walk with Jesus made it even like, more intense.
Right. So I'm so grateful, honestly, for the journey that we've been on. And, just the growth we've been able to experience, each individually and then as a couple, right? I don't think we'd be here today if we didn't kind of take it serious to really consider all the negative tendencies that we used to have or the way we used to speak and all these things. That's why I think, which that leads into our next topic of discussion, which is like how important it is to pray in a relationship. And this is what I think a lot of people don't do in the relationship. I think
that's a spiritual growth aspect.
The vast majority of people don't pray together. They don't. They may pray solo or individually or whatever the case may be, but they don't understand how powerful it is to pray with your partner as many times as you possibly can, whether it's before a meal, whether it's in the morning or in the evening, or just being able to be grounded and conscious of like being grateful for all the things that you have, or for even like praying for things to happen, or for somebody to get some help or healed, right? These are all things that as a couple, the more you do together, like the stronger your bond is spiritually, and there's a Bible verse in James that talks about this, which is in James chapter 5, verse 16. It says, "The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective."
Yeah.
The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. And when you do that together with your partner, you're able to create an opportunity for someone to get help, right?
Right.
Like people underestimate the power of praying for somebody.
100%.
and praying for each other in a relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you see me struggling with something, I'm sure you have. You've probably seen me struggle more than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm sure there's been countless times where you've been, you know, on your own and you're just praying for that season to be lifted, right? And to help, right? For God to help me and things like that and vice versa. Right? And that's something that I think is so underrated and so underestimated in this world where, you know, somebody needs to be guarded up or armored up in prayer. And then the more you pray for your partner, the more you can see them grow, right? Because think about it. How many people complain about their partner or their significant others to change or to do certain things or to stop doing certain things or to stop talking a certain way or to stop reacting a certain way, and they're not actually asking God for that, you know, to help them, you know?
Right.
I think that's something that's so I can't even honestly right now we're speaking from a perspective of somebody people who are spiritually maturing on their walk, but you know, it kind of makes me think like if you really want your partner to make some changes in their life, like don't you think it's a good thing to actually, you know, ask the person that created him to to actually help that person, you know, overcome that that struggle, right, that they're struggling with? So yeah, I kind of want to see your perspective on it, like the concept of being able to pray for each other and being able to pray with each other. Like how good has that made you feel on our journey, particularly over the last 2 years, and how important it is for you to feel like that's something that we have in our relationship.
Yeah, I like it is so important. It's literally underrated, like you said. Like I even think talking about it now it makes me realize like past relationships and how like since those were like decades ago, I never prayed for my partner. So I'm just like, what would have happened if I did? You know, like you never know. Like that's so crazy. Like maybe they would have been helped. You know, but um, no, I think it's so underestimated, and you don't you won't know how underestimated it is until you actually do it. Or like, and I know there's people watching that are probably like, well, I don't know how, or I don't really pray, or I can't just like go to God and start praying for my partner. I never prayed about anything else. Or like, you know, there's so many people that are probably questioning all of these things, but it's like, you have to start somewhere. Like, you have to say whatever's on your heart. Just like, God knows what's in your heart, first of all. He knows what you're thinking, He knows what you're going through. So just have a conversation and start there. And I think that's in a sense where we all started, right? When we didn't know how to pray, like years ago and stuff. But I've actually like literally, it's so funny that you brought this up because I was literally thinking about this like a day ago. I've literally seen like what has happened from me praying for you. And it's crazy too because marriage does make a difference. Like marriage makes a difference in a lot of things. Like it's some people are just like, oh, it's a piece of paper, blah, blah, blah. And like for me, I'm like, it's not. It's really not. Especially what are you getting married for? If you're getting married for a piece of paper, different story. But like marriage, when I pray for you before we were married, and when I pray for you after, I don't know what, like, I don't know if it's the fact that God's like, okay, you made this commitment and you guys are made a covenant with me and things like, I don't know, does it get does it get you like to the front of the line or something? I'm not sure. But I feel like when I prayed for you before, I can tell that obviously it helped you. Like my prayers, I know God always heard my prayers and everything. I pray for you for so many different things. Obviously, I pray for you every day, but there are certain things that I would be specific about. And even after we got married, I realized how swiftly they were happening. Like I would pray for something for you, and it would happen like fast. And I was like, I literally just prayed for him about that, like yesterday or the day before or something like. Or I mean, it could be constant, but it's so quick. It happened multiple times and I would like, and I'm the only one that knows that I prayed that. So I just like have a conversation with myself and I'm like, that is crazy. I literally just prayed for that. And here he is doing or whatever, getting whatever I prayed about. So it's so underestimated. Like it really is. And if you're like actually walking with God and you're walking with Jesus, like he will answer you. Like he will be like, he knows your heart. Like, so if he knows that you're praying for you, you'd be surprised. Like, you wouldn't even have to pray for those things. And because I pray for you, it could happen. Like, people don't know how we're guarding them with our prayers. Partners don't know how you can guard them with your prayers, how you can protect them, how you can accelerate them. Like, even if they're not praying for those things for themselves, like, it's actually crazy. Like, your prayers work for someone, so you can't underestimate the power of your own prayer for somebody else. So
yeah, we watched a movie recently. Maybe you've heard about it or not, but it was called The War Room.
Yeah.
How powerful that movie was. And the whole concept of the movie is essentially how powerful prayer is, and how the more you can isolate yourself in a silent place, a silent room, and able to really kind of prioritize the conversation that you're having with God, and what you're praying for in that room or wherever that place is, like, matters so much, right? And in this particular movie, she was having struggles with her relationship and her husband, right? And she, and she meets this old lady, and she essentially kind of starts pushing her towards the direction of, like, have you been praying
like
for
what to do with her problems?
Yeah, like, she's been complaining about the
all
husband,
these things,
and all these things, and like how this guy's constantly traveling, not coming home, and God knows what.
Just complaining about her husband nonstop.
And then, like, she asked, like, have you been praying for him? Like, before you start complaining and doing all these things, have you actually asked God for him to move in the relationship, or for him to help him in whatever it is that he's doing, to be able to kind of bring you guys closer? And that's something that, like a light bulb lit in her, and she was like, wow, like, I never really considered that. She was a Christian and believed in God, but she never armored up in prayer for her partner. And that's something that I resonated with so much, because that's something that we want to be better at too every single day. We want to pray for each other. We want to be able to uplift each other when we're not in the same room, or whatever the case may be, or even when we are in the same room. We want to be able to be that foundation for each other, outside of, like, obviously with having God first. But but yeah, that movie was so powerful, and I recommend that so much for every couple to watch. The movie War Room is something every couple should watch. Even if you're a single person, you should watch it, because it's going to prepare you for what's to come, right? Because this life is not easy. This world we live in is not easy. But the more you're able to pray for your significant other and be able to cover them, and ask God to try to really, like, help them become the best version of themselves, right? It's going to by default improve your relationship, right? So that's something.
Especially if you're married.
Especially if you're married, right? Or you want to get married, or if you're thinking of proposing to somebody, or these are all things that you want to create these healthy habits before, right?
Yeah, of course.
So that way you can, like, enter a marriage and enter it on the right track, with the right habits, with the right perspective,
Because then when you actually are married, it's like you really do become one person, which is crazy. Like, I don't know how to explain it.
Right. So I think when you actually, like, considerate about these type of things in your relationship, and you're very mindful of these things, like, it creates like a bond that it's not, it becomes way more of a spiritual bond versus, like, a physical. Couples have physical bonds with each other, obviously. But when it comes to being able to focus on the spiritual side of things, that spiritual intimacy, like, becomes the actual, like, foundation of that relationship, right? Because one day when we're old, and we can't become as, we can't be as physical as we want to be, or can be. Like, what's the foundation that we're going to be, like, living our life with, right? And, like, so many people don't even think that far ahead, right? Because they're like, I don't even know if I'm going to even get that far, But at the end of the day,
or they try to, like,
I feel like it's an excuse.
They think it could be something else. Like, they're just like, I don't know. I think they don't take it seriously.
Right. Exactly. And when you have God at the center of your relationship, you do take it seriously. You are more conscious of that. Yeah. And for us, that's something that we try to prioritize every single day, and reflect that every single day. With the people that we talk to, or our family members, or our immediate friends. We want to be reflections of a relationship that they know, wow, like, God put these two together, and they actually are reflecting that. And I've always wanted that. I'm sure you have too. Unconsciously, but now we're conscious of it, and we're like, wow, thank you, God. Like, we're so grateful for it. So we come together, and we're just like, how did I even get here?
No, literally.
So,
and it's like, a lot of people don't even, like, they don't even think that could be a thing, though. That was just crazy. Like, I've talked to people, and I've heard, like, just stories of other relationships where people don't even think that like they can have a foundation that's very intimate and very loving without like physical intimacy or things like that. Like they don't think that's literally, they think that's actually impossible. Like they think that their partner would leave them if there was no physical intimacy. And I'm like, that's like, so what if you like broke your legs and arms today? Like, are they going to leave you? Because you clearly can't be physical after that. Like that's people literally probably, and they will be like, yeah, probably. Like that's insane. When people just start thinking about that.
Yes.
Because like I've literally just said it too before. So I remember this conversation I had, and I was like, me and Steven have a lot of intimacy without, you know, physical intimacy. Yeah, like we have so much intimacy, and they're like, how? Like, how do you do that? And I'm like, well, I don't know how to explain it. There's ways like that I could talk about, but I'm like, it's just like a natural thing. Like there's just, even just talking and having conversation, like, you know, it's a heart connection. It's a spiritual connection. It's that kind of bond. It's not dependent on physical. That's just a bonus.
Yeah, I feel like if anything, once you prioritize the spiritual connection or mental connection, emotional connection, like it makes the physical connection way better. You know? It enhances that because it's we're participating in something that we're created to do, but you know, our souls are something that are connected. Yeah, and it's like we practice that connection, right? We feed it daily, right? With the way we speak to each other, right? And it's not perfect every single day, of course. I don't want anybody that's watching this to think that it's like a movie.
No, it's literally work, especially if you've been together for like a million years. Right. Like we're 5 years in, but I could imagine people that have been 10, 12, 15, 20 years. Like it's
5.5.
Oh my gosh. Well, almost 6. It's literally, it doesn't even feel that long.
I know. It's a lot of time though. So when it comes to like applying pressure to somebody in a healthy way, I think in our relationship, it's been something that, you know, I've tried to be conscious of doing in a way where, you know, you kind of are never going to have like the right amount of pressure, or like, you know, the right amount to make somebody take action, because people are their own person. Like they're going to do what they want essentially. But yeah, when it comes to accountability and being able to like bring things up when it's supposed to be brought up and not hold things in, like I feel like in relationships, that's something that a lot of people tend to do. Hold things in until it's too late and then they burst and things go crazy. You know, it's a communication issue, obviously, but I think the concept of being able to be encouraging to somebody and say, you know what, like, I believe in you, I trust you, that you're going to be able to grow into a better version of yourself, right? Because people don't hear that all the time. I think, you know, they don't hear the concept of like, oh, like, I want you to become the best version of yourself. Like how I met you, well, however long ago, shouldn't be the person you are today. And then shouldn't be the person you are tomorrow. Like you're supposed to constantly be evolving and growing.
Just people forget.
You know, yeah, exactly. Because they're like, you know, I don't know, they're just like living in a cycle of repetition, essentially, in a relationship. They get comfortable, exactly. And then they start looking in the mirror and they're just like, whoa, where am I? Who am I? Like, who am I even with? You know? And I think in our relationship, that's something that I've always admired, to the point where we're not settling for staying how we are, and who we are even. Like, we want to constantly grow, right? We come from a background of competition because we didn't come from much. We always wanted to excel and do more and be more because, you know, we don't come from a lot, right? And that doesn't
naturally, you're just changing over time.
Right, exactly. So, you know, that's something that I think is super important in a relationship. And I'm so grateful for us to be just conscious of that stuff. Because I think, you know, in terms of the spiritual aspect of things, you know, which is something that people don't, again, they don't prioritize that. When you're able to say, you know what, like, you start giving this healthy advice, like, hey, like, you should maybe listen to this video, or you should read this, or you send them something on Instagram instead of sending your partner like funny videos all the time. Send them like a prayer or a sermon
or something,
or a piece of content that can kind of feed their like emotional side or their spiritual side or their mental side, you know, not just a dopamine hit of watching something funny or watching something cool. We should do this, we should do that, and like, you know, we should travel to this place, but why would you travel to that place if you're like in a miserable relationship? Like, right, you know, it doesn't make any sense. No. So, you know, I feel like these are all little things that we can do more intentionally in a relationship, and that can lead to more production And together, of course.
Like,
absolutely.
Because you need individual growth, obviously, and then growth together. Because if you don't have individual growth, then you literally can't grow together. Like, you can't be someone who's growing and the other person is completely staying who they are.
Right.
Like, I think we both experienced that too in relationships, and so many people have. Like, that's the reason for so many separations in relationships, because it's like one person's growing, the other person's not. They're not on the same page. They're not equally yoked to like so many different things. But applying pressure is good. Again, it's how you communicate it and how, like, what you're doing to help. Like, you can't just apply pressure and tell somebody something without helping them, which could be what? Praying for them, or it could be what you just said, like sending them stuff and showing them things and opening their eyes. Because if you're aware of something they need to change, that means that you're aware of what they could possibly do. Or maybe you could even just do research to find out what they could do to help, even if they haven't. And then you just say, like, hey. And then that sometimes is not reciprocated well, and that's kind of where relationships end. Like, the other person's like, are you trying to change me? I'm never going to change for anybody. And then they're like, wait.
Yeah, another concept is like wanting someone to change in your relationship, and then being conscious and accepting the fact that it's not going to happen on your time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm sure we definitely have struggled with that, where like you want me to change certain things and I want you to change certain things and I want that to happen the way when I want it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what you start realizing when you start like being more mature spiritually in your walk with God, is that God's going to take care of that when it's supposed to happen.
And it's like, how I feel like how many years? What did I ask you? I'm always like, how many? We've been together for 5 years, 4 years, or how much longer is it going to take you? But it's usually something like not a big deal. Right. Like, that's the truth. Like, it's like, okay, this is really not a big deal, but it's like why is it still happening? But like, there are situations though where people need to understand, like, if it is a big deal, like if it's like abusive mentally, physically, or any of it, like, you shouldn't even, that's not even
that's
like
not
something
relationship anyway.
That's not something you wait on to see when it's going to change. Like, that's different. We're talking about more of like a communication thing, or just like something that bothers you in a way that's like not a big deal. Like, example, like, what did I get mad at you about? And it has to do with something dumb, like the dishes or something like that. But I'm like, how many times do I have to tell you? Like, we've been together for 5 years. Like, how many times? This is just an example. It's silly, but it's an example of what we've dealt with. And it is a silly example. I just don't know what other, like, medium, not so intense example to give. But yeah, just like that. It's like, it's going to happen on your own time. One day, maybe you're going to not do it. And you're going to be like, oh, she said this, or she felt this way about it.
It's part of the relationship. I feel like in relationships, like, there's going to be things that you just have to accept that.
Oh, yeah.
They're not that serious. Like,
that too.
You leave a sock there or something like that.
You make your rattles.
Yeah, like,
especially when you're married.
It's like, what would Jesus do, bro? Would he nag at you or something like that? I don't think so. I think, for certain things, he'd be like, like, I would.
No, and it's so pointless too.
I would leave with love. Like, if you drop a sock there and you don't pick it up until later or whatever, like, I'm going to go pick that sock up and put it in the
hamper, literally.
And vice versa. Like, these are all things that people, like.
That's minor.
Get so worked up on, and if anything, you're now like, you're not positioning yourself to lead into something more negative by radiating that.
But obviously, there's different situations.
Of course,
it's like more real serious situations, and it's like when to know how safe it is to continue to work on it, and then also just to like actually remove yourself from the relationship. Is also like discernment and things that you have to understand. Because some people will stay in relationships and take like things that are terrible. Like take like someone just cursing at them all the time, or speaking bad to them, or like mentally or emotionally or physically abusing them. And that there's so many things that fall under all of those categories. Like some people think, oh, if it's not physical abuse and mental or emotional abuse, like they don't even think about that. Like to them, it's like, it's not physical, it doesn't exist. But it's like, you have to think about all those things. So it's like knowing when to continue and work on those things, and then knowing when to like, this is bad, you should not be in the situation at all, you shouldn't take that from someone else, is a whole other thing too, which is like a whole other topic, actually.
Yeah, I mean, there's levels to that,
because you could like, anybody can sit here in a couple and be like, oh, like you have to stick it out, you got to work the things, but it's like, what things, like.
For everybody's going to be different, right? But if you kind of study what the Word of God says, like once you make a commitment, as long as that environment isn't, dangerous for you, emotionally, mentally, then or physically even, then you're called to work things out and help each other through something, right? Especially if you make a commitment. Now, if you're not committed to somebody, then that's a whole different topic, right? But when you make a commitment, when you have kids with somebody, for example, when you're married to somebody, in a relationship that's serious, these are commitments somebody makes, and if that commitment has things attached to that where they're essentially like conditions, if those conditions are very like loose, like it's not gonna be a healthy relationship. You have to be very like, you have to be willing to overcome tough times, right? Because people are just conditioned now to not feel like they have to go through hard times, like whatever that, like, I feel like people are just babied nowadays, in relationships and
that, or their scale of like what's okay and what's not okay is like literally mumbo jumboed.
Yeah, it's like confusion. It's like spirit of confusion.
Like you're confused, and it's sad because people will just stay in relationships thinking, something's not bad, and it's like, no, this is really bad. Like that needs to be fixed, or you gotta go.
Yeah, so I think just the ability for you to, as a couple, or we as a couple, to come together and say, I'm committed to overcoming the challenges that we're gonna go through, and just being conscious that like we're gonna go through challenges, right? Like we're not gonna sit here and say to each other like, okay, we're gonna be this perfect couple that's never gonna go through anything, and not prepared to fight the battle. This is a war that we're living, right? And in terms of like the spiritual realm of constant attacks that a godly couple attracts, right? Because if I'm guaranteed that the God of this world, which is Satan, doesn't want people like you and I coming together and building a godly relationship, because we're gonna be
and then that's two battles we gotta fight. Because not only are who you are, and I am who I am, and we gotta work on being together in general, but then we have another battle we have to face, which is the enemy that doesn't want us together, doesn't want us to be healthy and happy and loving, and he will just continue attack.
Right. Exactly. So that's why it's so important to be like armored up
and aware,
and just awake to these things that they happen, right? Some people are just drifting through life, and we don't drift anymore. We used to drift probably in many ways, but
when you're spiritually aware, you literally, like, it's not even a question, like it's the enemy, like you're like, was that us? Absolutely not. Like that was clearly an attack, and it was so unnecessary.
Yeah. So when it comes to being able to like navigate and help your partner navigate through that kind of experience, I think it's the most important, like, or one of the most important things you could ever do for your partner, is be able to like be that leaning, like that rock outside of Jesus, like on this earth, like being that rock with your partner, being able to lean on them for support, right? And help in these areas that are like hard to go through alone, right? And a lot of people are like in a relationship, but they're like more lonely than ever, for example. That's something that's such a relevant topic nowadays, where people get together, but then they just feel lonely in the relationship, and that's something that's not from God, if anything. So I think when you have a partner that kind of opens up that eye, like that, your eyes, really, your two eyes, to be able to see these concepts of like, I want you to grow spiritually. I want you to be more of a person that loves more and cares more, and I care for you and love you so much that I want to be that person for you, right? I want to get you closer to God, because the closer you are to Him, the more you prioritize Him, the more you're gonna love me and prioritize me. I think that's so underrated.
No, it is.
If more people really focused on that in their relationship, like they don't know how much of an amazing thing that could really be for your relationship.
No, we live in an anti-marriage, anti-relationship generation. Like, people are promoting not getting married more than getting married, not having kids more than having kids, more of the opposite of what we should or want to be doing. Because there's tons of people who want to be married but are like, no, my generation promotes marriage is bad, so like I don't want to do it anymore, even though in my heart I want it. It's just, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's it boils down to like being patient and just being a person that like exemplifies that patience and that love, right? and that, being able to make it fun, like a fun experience. Like people kind of think that being a faithful person, a person that loves God and believes in God, boring. They think it's like a boring thing, or they think it's like this way of life. School. That's like,
people say it's old school.
Old school, whatever they want to call it. That's because they think they're new school, and they think that they're, it's just that's what the world brings. It's that mindset,
Yeah, there's new school things, of course. We're in a new generation, we're in a new decade, but marriage and those concepts of ways of life are not old or new school.
They're in their own category. They're and
wedding types can be old and new school. It's a category of marriage and getting married, but marriage itself is the same as it's always. That doesn't change.
Yeah. And just the faith journey overall, right? No matter if you're married or not, you can make it fun.
No, yeah.
You could have a life that's righteous, and you make good decisions, healthy decisions, and
you can be
good
happy.
Quality people. That joy that you can't buy that. It's just, money makes it good, but when it comes to that genuine experience with good quality people, especially when you're in a partnership.
Yeah.
For a relationship with somebody who takes it very seriously, you can have a really fun life,
Yeah.
You can do things, and you can do all the things that anybody else does, but you're doing it from a different spiritual level. And
you also don't need to do all those things to be happy and be
right. Yeah, we don't depend on those things.
Yeah. Which a lot of people do.
Right. They go to trips, and they go do events, and they do
and they are dependent on that.
Yeah, exactly.
They are dependent
date nights or whatever. Date nights are important, of course. Don't get me wrong.
No, of course. But it's that's
the activity.
The only...
They resort to it to say, you know what, I'm actually in a healthy relationship because I'm going out to dinner with a girlfriend or my wife.
And we can travel, and it's okay. I can even, or we can even both speak for ourselves, where we've done that in our relationship. We've made a lot of money together. We've traveled a ton. We've done all of those things. And we have fun, obviously, but we knew back then and know now, especially that wasn't that didn't make the relationship. That wasn't the foundation. That wasn't because if it was, then we would probably have broken up. We wouldn't be together.
Yeah. The enemy has tested us various times.
Yeah.
And, it's only by the grace of God that we're still here, honestly. And I think that's something that is important in any relationship, is having grace for each other.
Yeah.
And having mercy for each other, and being able to say, you know what, God, you have this for me. If I'm not capable to have it for my partner, my significant other, or even anybody really in this world, if you're not able to have grace and mercy for somebody, and you expect God to have it for you, you're just a person that just doesn't understand what that actually means, and how much of a gift that is, just to wake up every day and knowing that you're not deserving of something and God still blesses you,
right.
Or knowing that you deserve so much worse, you did something wrong, or you lied to this person, you did something that hurt somebody else, and
right.
And you haven't, God still has mercy on you.
Right.
That's something that people aren't understand. They don't understand, and they're not as grateful for it as they should be.
No.
So when you're in a relationship and you may not be having a bad day, or you're having a bad week, or you're just not feeling the best, and and you kind of you lash out at your partner. That's something that as a person that receives that energy, you're not supposed to add fuel to that fire. You're supposed to do your best to be that love, reflect that love, so that way that situation will get cleared up as soon as possible.
Yeah, but people let their emotions get in the way, and people never actually fix their heart posture and things like that. People think that having gratitude simply will fix everything. You just said, it's they'll be oh, I'm so grateful, but it's are you really? Because if you were so grateful, and if you were happy with what you have, and if you did think that it could be much worse, then would you be so hateful? Would you be so angry? Would you be have so much anxiety? Would you really? No, you wouldn't, because if you really felt gratitude, if you really understood how you're possibly in the situation you are, people just throw around that word, and it's is your heart posture of gratitude really? Because you will know, it will show.
Yeah, it's very evident in how someone operates, how they how they talk, how they show up, all these things, and I feel if as long as you accept that this thing is not going to be something that happens overnight. Like, you know, imagine like you're with somebody and you want to be with them for a long time, God willing, your entire life, right? That's really what we're supposed to amount to. Like that's what the goal is, you know? Unless that person is completely lost and they think that, you know, going through life, having hundreds of partners is something that is healthy or even fulfilling. It's not anywhere close to that. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to judge. You know, that's one thing I'm not going to do is judge somebody, especially my significant other, for anything that they do. I'm going to do my best to point them in the direction of Jesus and what God says to do.
That's the hardest thing. One of the hardest things.
It's super hard. It's so hard.
Not judge.
It's putting your pride to the side.
Do it.
It's pride, honestly. It's what pride is. And pride is literally the biggest weapon that the enemy uses in any relationship. Right? Not only a romantic one or
just any,
you know, like your business partners or your friends and stuff like that. When you're prideful, it creates everything negative, right? The way you communicate, like the anything that stems from that is going to lead to destruction in any relationship, you know? So, and I speak from experience, you know?
Same. I used to think that being prideful was prideful. And I, like, being prideful was prideful, and I always wanted to be prideful. Like, I used to be like, I'm prideful.
Right. And, you know, we've learned to try to eliminate that from how we operate.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you humble yourself.
Yeah. Humble yourself, literally.
As soon as you humble yourself and you practice that humility individually, like personally, and then like, you project that to your relationships, and you make them feel like, wow, like this is not a toxic environment where pride is an ego or taking over. Like that can help any situation that could have turned badly. You can make it into a positive, productive one, you know?
Yeah.
So I think in a relationship, when you're...
And that's important when you're changing, too. Like when you're developing, like we were talking about. Like when you're with somebody and they're like changing who they are and developing who they are, like pride and ego is probably going to get in the way the most during that time. But like, that's something you have to learn to get rid of and shut down completely.
Yeah.
Because then if you didn't, you wouldn't be able to like the new version of someone or like continue on, because you would be mad because you're prideful that they changed who they are and like you didn't, or like you're just like, why aren't you like the way you were before? Like that's the complete wrong mindset to have. Like I think the only reason that you were able to continue growing is because like me especially, like I kept falling in, like I would fall in love with every new version of you too, and you did the same thing for me, you know? So in that, I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't put away my pride and if I didn't try to change who I was too. So.
Absolutely. You know, and I feel the best is still yet to come. I feel like we're only scratching the surface of what we're capable of in our relationship and where we can go collectively and the impact we can create on others.
Yeah.
So I feel like this episode is going to help, you know, a lot of people that are, you know, in a relationship or that they're single and they're kind of just looking for a perspective to really lean on and just, you know, all we want to do is plant a seed.
Yeah.
And, you know, and God's going to do the watering. God's going to put the people in their life to be able to, you know, expand that, and hopefully it grows into something beautiful. And it helps somebody, right? That's kind of what our prayer is.
Yeah.
Is that this?
Even if it's like one person or two in this case.
As many as God wants it to be, you know what I mean? If it's one, it's one. If it's 1,000, it's 1,000. If it's 1,000,000, it's 1,000,000. But we're not doing this for anything but just to be able to, you know, have a healthy conversation, a real one, and glorify God in the process. You know, I feel like whoever listens to this and they get something out of it, then we did our job, right?
Right.
You know, we're doing this because we're wanting to be faithful servants to the kingdom of God and expand it here on earth. And, you know, we want to be good reflections of that for our community and people that follow us and people that are going to follow us in the future. Maybe somebody watches this that's years down the road, who knows, right? And it helps them. Because these are all concepts that come and stem from what the Word of God says. So what we're talking about is essentially eternal, right? You know, now what is not eternal is the experiences that we all have in this world.
Right.
But what is eternal is the relationship that you have with God and what that can do for you, you know, and what it can do for your relationship, right? And all your relationships, not only your significant other, but like your business partners, your family, your friends, your coworkers, your neighbors. Like these are all things that you can reflect and make people feel like, wow, this person is a woman of God. This person is a man of God. And they exemplify those things, those characteristics, the character of God, right? that's an energy. People feel that, you know, you walk in a room, they're like, whoa.
Yeah.
There's something about this person that is different. And they don't have all these icy chains and watches and they're not driving a fancy car, but they're walking in there and there's a presence there, you know? And that's exactly what the Holy Spirit does. So that's what I'm excited about, honestly, is being able to kind of share this episode with people. And I'd love to have everybody's thoughts too. Like, just feel like this is an open conversation. I'd love to get feedback and perspective and, you know, comment and just share what you think is, you know, the importance of a spiritual relationship within your, you know, your partnership or your marriage, your, you know, your significant other, right? Your partnerships in your life. Like, I think that, you know, spiritual growth is very, very important, and it's not something that ever ends. No. I think it's something that, if anything, just continues to excel throughout your life, and you're able to just position yourself to just be a person that exemplifies what God would do in certain situations. So yeah, I think we can wrap this thing up and just, you know.
That's a good question, though.
What's the question?
I don't remember, but it was really good. You just said it.
You're funny.
You just said it.
My hands are so cold.
Yeah. Cool. So
what did you say? Oh, you said that you would love to know what's most important in everyone's relationship, I think.
Just people's perspective.
Yeah. What is your
what?
I just want to know what whoever's watching this, what your perspective is on relationships, and what is to you as of right now. It doesn't even have to be like future you or what you'd like to think, but to you right now, what is the most important aspect of a romantic relationship? Even if you're not spiritual, even if you're not a Christian, we don't know who's watching this, but just what do you think is the most important aspect?
Right. I think for us, it's spiritual growth, but for you, it could be something different. Definitely comment, you know, and share what that is for you. But we feel like, you know, the tighter your relationship spiritually and emotionally and mentally that you have with your relationship with your partner, I think it's gonna, you know, kind of be the foundation for positivity and growth within the relationship. So, looking forward to your feedback, friends. We love you. We appreciate you. We're praying for you. Yes. And we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.